Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today we're looking at scientific notation. Now, if the warm-up was easy for you, the beginning of this video will be very easy. I would recommend skipping towards the end if the warm-up was Sorry, kiddos. If the warm-up was difficult, then make sure you watch everything here. I'll go through how to do the warm-up again. So, scientific notation is something very often used in science to help make it easier to express extremely large or extremely small numbers. And it is written in the form of a number times 10 to a power. And there's one special thing that you got to keep in mind, is that number has to be between 1 and 10. It cannot be 10 or bigger. Okay? So, if we're going to write a number in scientific notation, the first thing we need to do is make that number smaller than 10. So in order to make 4,700 smaller than 10, I would put a decimal between the 4 and the 7. Okay? So that means I have the number 4.7 times 10 to what power? Well, where was the decimal point initially? It was here. And we moved it 1, 2, 3 spaces. It's a positive 3 because it represents a large number. If it was a small number, it would be a negative 3. Let's try a small number. So to make 47 10,000ths a scientific notation, the first thing I decide is where I'm going to put my decimal. Remember, it needs to be a number between 1 and 10. So I'm going to put it between the 4 and the 7. So that gives me 4.7 times 10. Now I need to count my decimal places that have moved. It was originally there, and I moved it 1, 2, 3, 4 places. And this is a negative 4 because it represents a very small number. Let's try something else. Let's talk about going from from scientific notation to standard. Okay? So I have my decimal 5.2738, and I need to move my decimal 3 spaces. It's positive, so I'm going to make this number bigger. To make this number bigger, I would move it to the right. And now I'm going to write that number nice, neat, and pretty. It is 5,273.8. Now, I'd like to pause for a minute and point something out to you. In Colombia, it is very common to use a comma to represent a decimal. A comma is only used for large numbers. A decimal is used to represent things smaller than 1. Okay, so you need to make sure you keep that very separate in math. The comma is used for thousands, the decimal is used for things smaller than 1. Make sure you use them accurately. Alright, let's do this last one here. Again, I'm going to write my number, 6.45. I have a negative 5 as my exponent, so that means I'm going to be making this a very small number. So I'm moving it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. So I need to add 4 zeros in front of that 6. Now, most people more professionally accept a 0 in front of the decimal. So the best answer would be this one here. Alright, now this is the stuff that I was talking about that's going to be a little bit more difficult than the warm-up. What we're looking at is multiplying a scientific notation times a scientific notation. It's more simple to leave it in scientific notation and to do the multiplication. So we're going to use our exponent rules in order to do this. So remember, when I have the same base, all I have to do is add my exponents. With these large normal numbers, notice everything is multiplied here. All I have to do is 7.3 times 8.1. That gives me 59.13. So I'm almost done there. One thing you'll notice is this front number here is not in scientific notation. It needs between 1 and 10. So if I move that decimal one place, I need to adjust in my exponent. So I made it smaller here. So to balance it, I need to make it bigger here. If I take away place value here, I must add it here. Okay? Let's do one more. This is scientific notation divided. So if we take a look, we have the same base. So I'm going to subtract those exponents. 4 minus 9 is negative 5. And then these numbers here are just big normal numbers. I just have to divide them. So I'm going to do 1.2 divided by 4, which is 0.3. Now recall from our lesson yesterday, negative exponents are bad, but not in scientific notation. You can have negative exponents in scientific notation. Finally, this number here is not between 1 and 10. We need to move the decimal one place. I'm making this bigger, so I need to make this smaller. So that's going to be 3 times 10 to the negative 6. Final answer, scientific notation. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is some practice on My Math Lab.